When she walked out of the courtroom that day, she carried herself like she'd conquered the world, her head held high, a faint smile playing on her lips. She thought she had won it all: our home, my shares in the company, the loyalty of our so-called friends. What she didn't know was that the ground beneath her feet was already crumbling. A bouquet of white lilies arrived at her door later that evening, her most hated flower. Attached was a card with just 3 words: "Appointment confirmed, your secretary." That was the moment her carefully constructed illusion began to unravel. 5 years earlier, I would have done anything for Claire. She was captivating, graceful in public, calculating behind closed doors. My partner, my weakness, the one person I trusted above all. People called us unbreakable, a power couple, the envy of everyone. I believed that once too, until the pauses in our conversations grew longer and her perfume lingered on her clothes after late nights at the office. Love blinds you. Pride keeps your eyes closed even when you feel the blade sink into your back. It started subtly, her laughter on phone calls that ended abruptly whenever I rang her office. Her secretary, Jasmine, would always answer with forced cheerfulness, often stalling before transferring the call. Once, just before the line disconnected, I caught a brief exchange. Claire's laughter mingled with Man's low voice, followed by, "Just tell him I'm in a meeting." I didn't confront her then. Instead, I observed, waited. 3 weeks later, I arrived at her office an hour earlier than planned. She was gone, but her laptop sat open on the desk. No passwords, just carelessness. One tab stood out, a private calendar titled Claire, personal appointments. 5 entries, 3 meetings with a divorce attorney, 2 scheduled under her secretary's name, but held in a different building. The note simply read, "Coffee with A." It was Andrew, her attorney, married, expecting a child with his wife. Claire had mapped out every detail of her betrayal, assuming I'd never see it coming. But she made one miscalculation, underestimating me. I never let on. I smiled, cooked dinner, kissed her forehead at night, playing the loyal, oblivious husband she thought she could gut without consequence. Quietly, I was crafting my own plan. First, I moved my most valuable business assets offshore, transferring ownership to a shell corporation completely out of reach. Then I hired an investigator, not to follow Claire, but to dig into Jasmine. It didn't take long to discover where true loyalty lay. Jasmine, it turned out, valued money far more than secrets. For the right price, she handed me everything: emails, voicemails, even recorded conversations where Claire bragged about how she would leave me penniless but proud. I paid Jasmine generously, in cash, and made sure she was sipping cocktails on a Caribbean island long before the house of cards came crashing down. When Claire finally served the divorce papers, she wore that smug little grin. "Let's not make this messy," she said. "Of course not," I replied, feigning defeat. The settlement was swift. She took the house, the cars, and the account she believed held our fortune. What she never realized was that I had drained the most important accounts long before she even filed. Andrew, her trusted advisor, suggested she take a lump sum. Excellent advice for me. Even better when I anonymously delivered proof of their affair to Andrew's pregnant wife through a burner email account. By the time the ink dried on the divorce, Andrew was living in a cheap motel and Claire was celebrating with champagne. Meanwhile, I sat in my lawyer's office, finalizing documents that transferred her newly acquired mansion's mortgage back to the bank. She'd forwarded my signature on the refinancing application a felony. I saved that piece of evidence for when I needed it most. We met one final time at her favorite rooftop bar. She requested it. She arrived in red, as she always did when she felt victorious. "Free man," she toasted, raising her glass. "To freedom," I replied, clinking my glass against hers. She smirked. "You handled this better than I expected." I smiled back, calm and steady. "Oh, Claire, I handled it exactly as you expected." Her expression shifted. Unease crept into her eyes as I slid a folded envelope across the table. She opened it to find printouts of emptied bank accounts. transcripts of her conversations with Andrew, and finally, a copy of the forged mortgage document bearing her signature and my forged name. Her voice faltered. What is this? Evidence, I said softly. Fraud, conspiracy, adultery, all carefully documented. Not filed yet. She stood up abruptly, panic washing over her face. You wouldn't dare. My gaze didn't waver. You scheduled your appointments well, Claire, but you forgot mine. The next morning, my lawyer sent her an offer. Everything sealed, on one condition: complete silence. No contact, no future claims. She agreed by noon. Andrew lost everything. His wife cleaned out his accounts and filed for divorce. Jasmine stayed permanently on vacation. And I walked away untouched, watching the ruins behind me collapse. There's something strange about being underestimated. It makes vengeance feel like mercy. They saw me as the fool in the story. But I was simply the quietest predator at the table.